Hello, so our group will be focusing on Stoughton Public Schools. My name is Misa, and our group is Haven, Katrina, and Lay. So for our outline, this is in order of what we're going to be going over for our presentation. And for the background on the town of Stoughton, so the town of Stoughton is located about 17 miles southwest of Boston. It is mostly a residential and suburban community with a population of 28,824. And so this is, according to the Stoughton Public Schools webpage, they have a quote that focuses on public education as the forefront of their town. And for the district mission statement, it is the Stoughton Public Schools honors excellence, celebrates its diversity, and challenges its members to realize their potential. We set high standards using innovation and inclusive programs that enable students of varying learning styles to achieve success. And so these are different school mission statements that are taken from high school, middle school, and elementary schools. And for the demographic in student enrollment, the total count of students in the district is 3,555. And with the race and ethnicity throughout the district, the biggest significance is that the African American population of students is 21.4%, while the state is about 8.9%. And other than that, the other race and ethnicity groups based on district are not that significant to the state. And this is the demographic for gender and also selected populations, which include English language learners, economically disadvantaged students, students with disabilities, and students whose first language is not English. And then I'll be passing this on to Haven.
So we're going to look for a little bit at the proficiency and opportunity gaps in the Stoughton Public Schools, mostly looking at MCAS data. So this first slide shows that in terms of MCAS data from 2016 and 2017 for grades 3 through 8, Stoughton Public School students are scoring approximately in the same range as students from the state. So there's no clear difference between their outcomes on the math and ELA MCAS for that school year. However, when we look within the Stoughton Public Schools district, we can see that there are proficiency gaps between specific student population classifications. So if you start with that middle graph, the blue in all of the graphs represents students who scored in the exceeding expectations category on MCAS. The green is met expectations, the yellow is partially met expectations, and the red is expectations not met. And so this is looking at ELA for grades 3 through 8. All students, about half of the students were meeting or exceeding expectations. But when you look at ELL students on the left in the green box, you can see that only about a quarter of students were meeting or exceeding expectations, with a large number partially meeting them. And for students with disabilities, an even smaller quantity on the right were meeting and exceeding expectations, and the majority were failing the MCAS, partially meeting or failing to meet expectations. So there's a significant difference between the general student population, and the score is disaggregated by disability status and language learning status. While it's not as pronounced, there's also a noticeable difference between the general student population and the African American and Asian student populations. So these graphs are looking at math in particular, but a similar trend persists for ELA across these groups as well. Again, blue and green are exceeding and meeting expectations. Yellow and red are partially meeting and failing to meet expectations. And as you can see on the left, the center graph is all students. On the left, African American students were much less likely to meet or exceed the expectations on the math MCAS. And on the right, actually, the opposite exists, where the majority of Asian and Asian American students in Stoughton were passing the MCAS and exceeding expectations. So there's definitely a difference across racial and ethnic groups in terms of academic performance in the district. So those other two slides were looking at grades 3 through 8 for MCAS data, and the high school has a similar trend. So Stoughton High School has level 1 accountability status, which means that they have successfully narrowed a lot of achievement gaps. But as you can see from the graph, included here, they're still not on target for closing the gaps for students with disabilities and for African American and Black students. So that's another thing that is happening at the high school level in addition to in the younger grades. And one other opportunity gap and proficiency gap to look at is SAT performance and participation. So this chart shows that 2017-2018 SAT performance report for Stoughton. And so two big things to note here are that there are very few English language learner students taking the SAT, along with very few special education students taking the SAT, which creates an opportunity gap for students if they are looking to go into higher education after graduation. Those students are much less likely to take the test that is often the gateway into college. And then in terms of achievement, Black students on average were scoring 50 points below the general student population and from below their white and Asian and Hispanic counterparts on both the reading and the math subtests of the SAT. So not only does the achievement gap have an impact on the experience of Stoughton Public School students within the district, but it also creates potential challenges for them as they move beyond the district into higher education. So I'm going to pass it off to Katrina, who's going to talk about strategic programs, plans, and initiatives.
So the most recent public strategic plan the Stoughton Public Schools has published is from their plan from 2009 to 2014. So we will be looking at their strategic plan goals. They had 5 goals, and we're compare this with their some strategic initiatives that they are still currently doing or have just started doing in the district. So the first goal from their strategic plan was to expand the curriculum to meet the changing needs of students. So looking in terms of their special education programs, currently Stoughton Public Schools offers the following programs. It is most noticeable to note that they have an alternative learning center, which includes for emotional disabilities that ranges from kindergarten all the way through an emotional support program at the high school. They also have a therapeutic learning center specifically for autism spectrum disorder, which also begins from their preschool through the high school. Stoughton also has an English language learner program, which is based off of students' WIDA scores. After testing, they determine students' schedules. So their ELL teacher communicates between teachers and families, and student schedules get determined from their test scores. Depending on their WIDA level, students will attend 1 to 2 classes or more if their WIDA score is higher. If they're a level 1 student, their classes with the general population are on a pass-fail basis based on their effort in the class. Goal 2 from their strategic plan was to attain the highest level of achievement for all students. So one program that Stoughton was partnered with the YMCA, and it's called Rise Up. The summer program was aimed to support youth from low-income households, specifically in reading. The goal was to support 3rd graders who were reading below grade level, where in the morning they could focus on their literacy skills, and in the afternoon it was run as a summer camp. Along with the reading program through the YMCA, there's also a Make Summer Count program with Scholastic. Scholastic is conducting a study about promoting reading, and Stoughton was chosen as one of their cities in the nation to run this. The program worked with the elementary schools, where they split up 3 elementary schools for the summer, and then the remaining 2, the West and the Hanson elementary schools, were provided books during the winter. Students through the program were able to leave for either summer or winter break with up to 10 books that they self-selected, so that they could improve and continue reading. During the school year, there are family literacy nights that Scholastic ran, where students and families had the opportunity to come and discuss with each other, and students also had the option to trade in books to continue fostering reading. In the middle school this year, they are fostering what's called the Bright Night program, and it's in partnership with the Brookline Center for Community Mental Health. They have a Bright Network, which stands for Bridge for Resilient Youth in Transition. The O'Donnell Middle School in Stoughton is bringing this program on as a response to their changing populations and a higher need for more student support. It's going to be run as a transition program for students who have been absent from school and are needing to return back to the classroom. As some students can feel overwhelmed coming straight back into the classroom, this program is designed for them to slowly transition back, make up work until they are comfortable with entering the classroom. Specifically, it's for students who may be experiencing mental health issues and need a break due to anxiety or other concerns or reasons. It also helps with addressing our ELL population of students, as many ELL students leave to go back to their home country, and they can be gone for up to a month. Within the district, there are also clubs and programs that also promote equity. Spectrum is a club in both the middle and the high school where students can explore LGBTQ topics. There's also a Gay Straight Alliance. There's the Cultural Exploration Club, where students get the opportunity to learn more about different cultures and family backgrounds. Tokyo Club at the high school explores Japanese culture, anime, and there is the Parent Engagement Center to help communicate between families and the school district. The third goal of the strategic plan was to upgrade and/or replace existing school facilities. Since the strategic plan in 2016, Stoughton residents actually approved a debt exclusion override in order to construct a new high school. That construction began last June in 2017 and is scheduled to open in the fall of 2019. I'm going to pass this off to Haven, who's going to go over goals 4 and 5 of the strategic plan.
So the fourth goal of the strategic plan for the district was to expand and continue integrating technology throughout the community. And so in addition to creating many more opportunities for students and teachers within the school to use laptops, Chromebooks, iPads, there also was the introduction of the LEGO We Do 2.0 curriculum, which was a partnership between the district and LEGO. It was introduced in the previous school year at the elementary and middle school level as a way to add more robotics, engineering, and STEM into classrooms. And so the programs were different based off of the grade levels, but whether at the elementary or middle school level, the idea was to expose students who maybe had not already been familiar with the tech fields and with engineering concepts and robotics to these new scientific areas, and to create some interest in students regardless of their background. And then the fifth and final strategic plan goal was to enhance school, community, and intergovernmental relations. And so a major way that this has happened in Stoughton has been a partnership with the YMCA and the Youth Commission. And so through that partnership, there are free after-school programs offered to students throughout the schools. And they're dependent on the availability of partnering organizations. But in the spring of this last year, some of the activities they were able to offer were a volleyball program, early Thursday activities to kind of fill the gap for students who didn't have a place to go on the once a month Thursdays where students were let out early for teacher PD. There's a girl empowerment club and a mindfulness and meditation program. And so All of these programs had some aspect that created equity, whether for socioeconomic status, for gender status, or for students who have specific learning challenges and mental and emotional needs as well. So now to finish it off, I'm going to pass the session off to Lei, who's going to talk about best practices in literature and the law regarding closing equity gaps.
So based on the data we collected, so we can see that gaps still exist between ELL, special ed, African American students, and general population students. So in order to close the gaps or narrowing the gaps, so first we need to know why. So these are some possible reasons like language barrier, culture, motivation, socioeconomic status, parent support, or resources. So increasing understanding of students' home cultures, engagement between schools and families, and implementing necessary extended learning supports can help increase achievements for all students. So we suggest that school districts or schools can make a survey about those students. So here are some topics so the school to understand the students' family background, students' own learning habits or interests, and so on. And then for English language learners, so based on the Every Student Succeed Act Title III law, and then we make some suggestions. So the first one, emphasize academic language learning, not only the conversational English skills, but also focus on the academic language learning. And scaffold ELL students' learning or language acquisition across all content areas, not only English subjects. Provide ELL and family with culture instruction regarding school, class, norms, and American culture. For students with disabilities, based on Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, so we can provide more support in college preparation for students who are going to college, and for those students who are not going to college, or provide more support of their career readiness, like in order to achieve high graduation rates, and more collaboration between special ed teachers and general classroom teachers. And then both the special ed and general classroom teachers can collaborate with each other and give students more support. For African American students, so based on Massachusetts Legislature Chapter 222 of the Act of 2012, so here are two suggestions: reducing suspensions or expulsions and disappropriate discipline of minority students could help reduce achievement gap between Black and white students. Social emotional learning activities or academic projects that allow students to reflect on their own self-integrity, affirmations of values and skills, which could help reduce racial achievement gap. And finally, based on our classroom teaching experience, so there are some other possibilities and opportunities to help close the gaps. For example, like language tutoring programs, or mental health resources, or more evaluations for effective teaching. And then one of them, peer tutoring or support, I think might be work really well. For example, the Asian and American students mostly do well in academics. So African American students or special ed students can learn from them to get some study skills or suggestions, or just that they can get some support from each other. And then the last page, references we use.